Okay, I know many of you been waiting for this one. So the past 24 hours have completely reshaped the NewJeans Minijin controversy, and it quickly turned into one of the most confusing and fragmented and emotionally charged developments that we have seen in this entire saga. So in this video, we're gonna break down everything, like what actually happened, what the Korean media is saying, why ADOR is being cautious, I think, and why investors and fans like me are conflicted, and why some fandoms are anxious, and why HYBE needs an internal manual immediately. Okay, so let's start by laying out the facts as they unfolded. ADOR officially announced Hyein and Haerin's return. Then a few hours later, Minji, Hanni, and Danielle separately announced their return as well. But their statement was oddly written, mentioning like one member is currently in Antarctica, out of all places, Antarctica, and saying that ADOR didn't respond to them. ADOR then reportedly said that it was verifying the authenticity of their intent, suggesting no prior coordination. And then there were some news reports that claimed that Hyein's father played a key role in persuading the younger member, meaning Haerin, to return. And then, so I first noticed this news because HYBE stock yesterday in the afternoon jumped in the after hours market. And I guess investors reacted positively because the NewJeans IP could be used again. You know, all those concerts, albums, and tours, revenues, etc. But as a shareholder, I have expressed in my Korean video some deep concern about long-term risk. Okay, so let's talk about all these one by one. Okay, I have some multiple screenshots to go over. ADOR was the first to make a public move, as I have mentioned. Earlier in the afternoon, around 5 p.m. on November 12th, 2025, KST, they released an official notice announcing that Hyein and Haerin, the youngest two members in NewJeans, had expressed their intention to return to ADOR and resume activities under the label. So here it is. Announced from ADOR. NewJeans members Haerin and Hyein have expressed their intention to continue their activities with ADOR. After careful consideration with their families and sufficient discussions with ADOR, the two members have decided to respect the court ruling and uphold their exclusive contracts. ADOR will do its utmost to support Haerin and Hyein so that they can continue their entertainment activities smoothly. We kindly ask fans for their warm support and refrain from making speculative comments about the members. Thank you. So that was the announcement. What do you think? I'm going to ask you about your opinions a lot in this video. But the announcement emphasized that both members made the decision after long discussions with their families and that they chose to respect the court ruling that upheld their exclusive contracts. Now, I'm not sure whether that's true or not, whether they really upheld whether they really respected the court ruling. But that's what ADOR said. And ADOR ended the notice by asking fans to refrain from speculation and to support the members' future activities. Now, if you remember, last November, that was when NewJeans held an emergency press conference and notified ADOR of the termination of their exclusive contract, and claiming that they had crossed a river of no return. They argued that trust with ADOR had been irreparably broken. And they even announced a new team named NJZ and attempted to begin independent activities. Then, of course, ADOR responded by filing a lawsuit to confirm the validity of the exclusive contract, while also requesting an injunction to preserve their status as the group's agency and to block NewJeans from, signing advertising deals. And the Korean court granted the injunction and even approved the indirect compulsory order, effectively shutting down all independent activities by NewJeans. And in the contract validity lawsuit as well, the court sided fully with ADOR. So although NewJeans initially announced they would immediately appeal, right, which is what I have talked about last week, they never actually submitted an appeal. Unlike their strong declaration right after the first ruling, the members' failure or delay of filing before the deadline, it kind of signaled a shift in their state of mind. So there was a lot of speculation about whether the NewJeans members will return or not. Well, it turns out at least 2 of the members had prior discussions with ADOR and expressed their intention to return. Now, let's briefly talk about those 2 members. So, Hyein, for example, to be honest, Haerin and Hyein, those are the 2 youngest members, right? And a lot of fans say that Haerin is the most visually, how would I say? I don't know, visual member, I would just say that. And then Hyein is the most vocally talented member. But the thing is, even these 2 members, although they have been relatively quieter compared to other 3 members in terms of showing some irrational behaviors and siding with Minji, for example, showing up at the National Assembly and say that she got bullied by the ILLIT manager or company and ADOR in front of all the politicians, doing things exactly as she was told by Minji and her lawyers. Or, showing up at a radio program wearing a t-shirt that says Minji and her faces printed all over the t-shirt. That's what Minji wore, by the way. But relatively, these 2 members were mild in their behaviors. But even so, Hyein, she posted a message, a photo of herself lying on a bench or a sofa or something with messages, written messages, "Stop copying." And that was last year, posted on ILLIT's debut day. And at the time, even though people brushed it off as a coincidence, but when Minji publicly accused ILLIT of being a copy of NewJeans, that post resurfaced and became a weapon in the discourse. And both members had previously expressed, so yeah, this shows that Hyein was also weaponized by Minji in terms of, waging attacks against HYBE artists like ILLIT. Otherwise, I don't know, maybe she really believed that ILLIT copied her or copied them. But both members had previously expressed strong hostility toward ADOR following Minji's removal as CEO and insisted on NewJeans with Minji. Haerin has stated that it's unbearably painful to work with a company where trust has collapsed. While Hyein said tearfully, "I cannot face the public with work that lacks authenticity without Minji." And because of this, I think there's curiosity about what exactly changed in their thoughts and attitudes to lead them to choose a return to ADOR. And here's a thumbnail with Haerin saying, "The penalty, we are not going to pay a cent to HYBE for going against the exclusive contract. 600 billion Korean won penalty, we're not going to pay a cent or a dollar." That's what she said. Now, another report came out that added a new layer. A Korean news outlet reported that, where is it? Hyein's, do I have it here? Do I not? Oh, right here. So Hyein's father, the youngest member, Hyein's father had played a major role in persuading both Hyein and Haerin to return to ADOR. Titled, Exclusive, NewJeans Hyein's father persuaded Haerin to return, the only parent who opposed terminating the exclusive contract. It says, Hyein and Haerin leave Minji's side and return to ADOR. The status of Minji, Hanni, and Danielle remains unclear as of around 7 p.m. that day on November 12th. The article says, after losing the first trial in their exclusive contract dispute with ADOR on October 30th, NewJeans had previously stated through their legal representative that they had no plans to return to ADOR and would appeal the ruling. However, it has been reported that Hyein's father, the only parent among the members who opposed terminating the exclusive contract with ADOR, persuaded his daughter and Haerin to decide on returning to ADOR. From the beginning, Hyein's father had objected to ending the contract, and it was revealed that he even filed a civil lawsuit against his wife over the issue of legal guardianship in order to bring his daughter back to ADOR. Now, that last part is nothing new. We have already talked about that this year, right? Which is a super unfortunate case. But according to this report, well, first of all, he was the only parent among the members who opposed terminating the exclusive contract in the first place. But then it claims that he even went as far as not only entering a civil dispute with his wife over legal guardianship, but also persuading Haerin to return with his own daughter to ADOR. Now, I'm not sure whether that's true or not, but that was one of the exclusive articles that came out yesterday on November 12th. Now, a few hours later, something unexpected happened. About an hour after this article came out, Minji, Hanni, and Danielle released their own joint statements, separate from ADOR's announcement. So here's an article that came out at 7:46 p.m. In the evening on November 12th. Breaking: all NewJeans members to return. Danielle, Hanni, and Minji also decide. All 5 members of NewJeans have decided to return to ADOR, the HYBE subsidiary label. And then here is a statement. Hello, this is Minji, Hanni, and Danielle. Check this out and let me know what you think about the wording of this statement. After careful discussion, we have decided to return to ADOR. One member is currently in Antarctica, so communication was delayed, and since ADOR has not yet responded, we are announcing our position separately. We will continue to meet you with sincere music and performances. Thank you. What a pathetic statement. Composed of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences, including thank you and hello, this is Minji, Hanni, and Danielle. Now, the article says, additionally, attorneys Kim Sung-soon and Kim Yuri from the law firm Hanil, who had represented the individual members, told reporters, after careful deliberation, Minji, Hanni, and Danielle have decided to return to ADOR. So those lawyers, interestingly, they're not part of the Sejong law firm. I haven't heard of these names yet. Kim Sung-soon and Kim Yuri from the law firm Hanil. 법인 Hanil, law firm Hanil. So I don't know. Maybe they hired new lawyers. Maybe they've already, done. They're done with Sejong lawyers. Who knows? Well, at least according to this article, after putting out this statement, the lawyers representing these 3 members contacted with journalists and reporters saying that yes, these members, after careful deliberation, have decided to return to ADOR. And then, there's a matter of Antarctica or whatever. But according to the same article, yesterday night in the evening, ADOR commented that they are verifying the sincerity of the 3 members' intention to return. ADOR 진위 확인 중. So let's talk about the tone of this statement first, and the timing, and the phrasing of this message, because it raises immediate questions. They wrote that after careful discussion, they too had decided to return to ADOR, but then added 2 strange details. First, that one member is currently in Antarctica, which caused in communication. And second, that ADOR had not responded, which is why they were releasing their statement independently. And that smells so much like Minji and what they have been doing all along in PR moves. Well, the gap between the two announcements, ADOR statements on one side and the remaining 3 member statements on the other, made it clear that there was no coordinated rollout, right? And ADOR's response confirmed that. According to the Korean media, the label told reporters that it was still verifying the authenticity of the 3 members' intent to return, which is an unusual phrase, in the industry, if you think about it. Because under normal circumstances, if an agency and an artist are on the same page, statements are aligned, reviewed, and released together. But the fact that ADOR had to publicly check whether the members really meant what they said tells us that communication wasn't smooth or wasn't happening at all. By the way, it seems like the one member who's in Antarctica is Danielle, and she's doing marathon or something. Whatever. Now, according to a Korean media article that just came out on November 13th, ADOR is currently taking a cautious stance. And actually, according to this article that came out at 8:40 p.m. yesterday on November 12th, it says, within ADOR, there is hesitance to immediately accept their announcements. The atmosphere suggests that the 3 members' sudden declaration resembles last November's situation when NewJeans unilaterally notified the company of contract termination. Because this is now a unilateral return notice, there is concern that additional conditions could emerge later during negotiations over their reinstatement. In particular, the announcement of all members returning is widely seen as a direct result of NewJeans losing both the injunction case, filed by ADOR to preserve its status and block the group from signing new advertising deals, and the first trial over the validity of the exclusive contract. In other words, this appears to be a return driven not by free choice, but by legal necessity. If, the article says, if ADOR ultimately accepts the 3 members' return, NewJeans will once again be able to resume activities as a full 5-member group. If discussions break down, there remains the possibility that only Haerin and Hyein, who already communicated their intention to return, could continue activities as a 2-member NewJeans unit. Or I don't know, maybe they will recruit 3 additional members or something. Who knows? But the article says, even throughout the contract dispute, ADOR has consistently maintained that it would fully support NewJeans' musical activities if they return. During the ongoing contract validity lawsuit, in July, the company even submitted a list of new songs to the court, showing that preparations for a comeback were already underway. Well, at least according to this Korean article, it sounds like the reporter contacted ADOR to gauge the mood, what is going on. And it seems like, what did it say? The article says, within ADOR, there is hesitance to immediately accept their announcement, which makes sense. And it says, the atmosphere suggests that the 3 members' sudden declaration resembles last November's situation when NewJeans unilaterally notified the company of contract termination. And because this is now a unilateral return notice, 일방적인 복귀 통보, there is concern that additional conditions could emerge later during negotiations over their reinstatement. Yeah, when I first read this statement, I was like, these guys just didn't learn anything. The tone and the sound, tone of the message. Now, here is another article, an exclusive article that came out today. The segment that I just read from was from this article that came out in the morning. So let me step back and say that yesterday, the Korean media only reported that ADOR is trying to figure out the the sincerity of their intentions to return. But then this morning, Korean articles said that within ADOR there is hesitance to accept their return notice. Then here's an exclusive article that came out about an hour ago, titled Two NewJeans members began return discussions a week ago versus the other three announced unilaterally on the 12th. So let's check this out. All 5 members of NewJeans who were embroiled in a contract dispute with their agency ADOR are showing sharply different approaches toward their return. On November 12th, all members declared their intention to return to ADOR. Haerin and Hyein made the announcement officially through the company, while Minji, Danielle, and Hanni delivered their return message about 2.5 hours later through their legal representatives, highlighting a stark contrast between the two sides. According to a 문화일보 investigation, so this article was published by 문화일보, Haerin and Hyein had informed ADOR of their intention to return roughly a week before the official announcement, and had been coordinating details with the company since then. So this was prepared. The announcement was made on the 12th because the appeal deadline for the contract validity case was the next day, November 13th. While communicating with Haerin and Hyein, ADOR had reportedly waited until the final day to see whether the remaining members would express their position through the submission of an appeal or non-submission of an appeal. In contrast, the article says, Minji, Danielle, and Hanni had not delivered any official stance to ADOR regarding their return up until the 12th, November 12th. Their statement immediately after Haerin and Hyein's announcement was therefore effectively a unilateral declaration. This is why ADOR had no choice but to respond cautiously, saying it was verifying the authenticity of the 3 members' intent. There's a substantial gap between what the two sides mean by discussion and consultation. ADOR stated, the 2 members, together with their families, carefully deliberated and had sufficient discussions with ADOR before deciding to respect the court's ruling and honor their exclusive contract. Because Haerin and Hyein are minors, this means their parents were also involved in resolving the tensions that had built up over the past year. However, the article says, Minji, Danielle, and Hanni said, we have decided to return to ADOR after careful consultation. In this context, we does not include Haerin or Hyein. And their careful consultation refers only to discussions among themselves, not with ADOR. After a year-long legal battle over the contract, ADOR was excluded entirely. Then, immediately after Haerin and Hyein's announcements, the 3 members suddenly issued their own statement to the media before communicating with the agency. They claimed, one member is currently in Antarctica, so delivering this late was unavoidable. And since ADOR has not responded, we had no choice but to announce separately. But this excuse is increasingly seen as yet another example of their my way approach throughout the past year. Many observers believe that once Haerin and Hyein made their announcements, the remaining 3 felt pressure and rushed to release a statement publicly before ADOR had any chance to reply. So Minijin-like. Some voices express disappointment that ADOR is not immediately embracing the 3 members' outstretched hand. But if the company were to accept this unilateral declaration unconditionally, it would be difficult to expect harmony or cooperation after their return. Furthermore, the article says, ADOR also has an obligation to protect Haerin and Hyein, who expressed their intention to return first and worked cooperatively to resolve the situation. If ADOR moves in lockstep with the sudden actions of Minji, Danielle, and Hanni without thoroughly confirming their intentions and coordinating positions, it could create tension between the 2 early returning members and the remaining 3. Yeah, so the contrast makes one thing painfully obvious, right? This wasn't a coordinated return. it was two separate camps moving on completely different timelines. I've been checking whether there are new updates, but this was the latest update that I could find, and I decided to make a video right after reading this. So, yeah, Haerin and Hyein have been in quiet talks with ADOR for a week, resolving issues with their families and working toward a controlled, planned reinstatement. And their return was relatively structured, official, and aligned with the legal deadline. But Minji, Danielle, and Hanni's announcements, it reads like a reaction, not a decision. They had no prior communication with ADOR, and no coordinated process, and no confirmed negotiations. And dropping that unilateral statement to the media, like hours later, paired with that odd Antarctica excuse, it felt like less like professionalism and more like, I don't know, scrambling or something. And Korean media is already framing this split as a maturity gap, right? Maturity gap. 2 members working with the company and 3 members working around it. And from ADOR's perspective, if you think about it, this creates a real issue. If they accept the 3 members back without careful verification, they risk undermining the members who returned properly and creating internal fractures right from the start. And what this really shows is that the group hasn't reconciled internally. Or, first of all, we just learned that there are some divisions having already happened. For some people, this was expected. But for some people, this was a surprise. Because it always looked like these 5 members plus Minji were the one and the same. But it looks like it's no longer the case. But why? Because the legal case forced changes, movement. And the relationships, loyalties, and communication patterns are fragmented. So the return might be happening on paper, but emotionally and structurally, NewJeans is not moving as one unit yet. And that's a real problem going forward. And I will have to, check whether there are new updates here and there. Looking at the news, no, nothing yet. Now, meanwhile, Team Bunnies, the so-called fan collective associated with NewJeans, has released their own statements regarding reports that all members are returning to ADOR almost immediately after the Minji, Hanni, Danielle statement. Let me read you this. Team Bunnies announced, "Hello, this is Team Bunnies. All 5 members have decided to maintain their exclusive contracts with ADOR and resume their activities with the label in accordance with the first trial ruling in the exclusive contract confirmation lawsuit." And then they continued, "We will respect the members' decisions under any circumstances and will continue to support and stand by all 5 NewJeans members with unwavering commitment." And then they added this paragraph, which is longer than the previous 2 sentences. They added clarification about their organization by saying, "Team Bunnies is a 1-person fan unit run independently by a minor member who joined the music streaming support team in July 2023 in the design field. Tasks that are difficult to resolve personally have been handled through outsourcing with help from other bunnies. We apologize for any shortcomings caused by the 1-person operation structure and once again clarify that we are not any kind of sponsor, involved party, or company affiliate. Following this decision, Team Bunnies will return to fulfilling its original role as a NewJeans music streaming support team. Thank you." What another pathetic statement. Because previously, a Team Bunnies representative was sent to the Seoul Family Court Juvenile Division on suspicion of violating the Act on the Collection and Use of Donations. We have talked about this recently too. And prosecutors reviewed their age and the nature of their actions and transferred the case to as a protective proceeding rather than a criminal charge. Then last October, Team Bunnies raised controversy after. So why did this happen? Because last October, Team Bunnies raised controversy after collecting donations online, saying that they intended to file complaints against malicious posts targeting NewJeans. But over 50 million Korean won was raised in about 8 hours. But because the collection was not reported in advance, it was investigated for violating donation regulations. Now, this statement was weird on many levels. First of all, it adds new layers of suspicion because the timing alone. This was released almost simultaneously with Minji, Hanni, and Danielle's unexpected return announcement that already raises eyebrows, right? And the content goes even further. And frankly, the excuses are difficult to take at face value because for over a year, what did I say in one of my recent videos? Team Bunnies proudly branded themselves as a collective of industry professionals, the experts, like lawyers, designers, strategists, cultural workers, or students with elite connections, and even like self-proclaimed insiders. And they coordinated with lawmakers, and they communicated with major law firms, and they pushed out like PR campaigns. And they claimed access to confidential corporate strategy documents. So they essentially positioned themselves as this intellectual vanguard of the fandom. And they openly acted as political lobbyists during this whole saga, NewJeans saga. But now, when they're faced with the donation law violation and growing public scrutiny, the group suddenly reintroduces itself as a one-person organization run by a minor who didn't know better. And this narrative shift is implausible. And they're using this as an opportunity to reintroduce themselves. I mean, if everything was truly the work of a single inexperienced teenager, how did this minor manage to organize a legal campaign and raise 50 million won in 8 hours, coordinating messaging with adult supporters, and communicate with lawmakers and the members' parents and Minji, and distribute political talking points across social media, and release supposed insider documents about HYBE and ADOR, and shape digital discourse on behalf of Minji. So this statement tries to paint Team Bunnies as a powerless amateur one-person fan account and the legitimate representative of a fandom. But these two images cannot really coexist. And the most suspicious part is how the group uses the minor revelation as a strategic shield here. It reframes a serious legal violation into a sentimental misunderstanding or something. It deflects responsibility away from whoever might actually have been directing operations. So, and the wording is also engineered to preempt further investigation by saying we are not connected to any company, we are not connected to any stakeholder, and we apologize for being inexperienced. Yeah, sounds like a legal distancing maneuver. And what makes this especially problematic is that they had a track record. They were proud when their role looked powerful, but now the legal consequences have arrived. They retreat into the role of a helpless minor. All right, I've already have enough talked about this. Anyways, and when they wrap all of this in a sentimental message about respecting the members' decisions and returning to their original role, this disconnect becomes even more striking, right? Because this isn't just about poor judgment, it's about accountability, transparency, and whether accountability and transparency, those are two values that are lacking right now when it comes to both Team Bunnies and the three members. So we'll have to keep watching how this plays out. Now, let's talk about how the market responded briefly, because like I said, this is actually the first way I found out something was happening. Before I even saw the statements or the news articles, I noticed HYBE stock suddenly jumping in after-hours trading. And that alone told me that investors had gotten wind of something significant, something big enough to move the share price outside of market hours. And if you think about it, since the NewJeans conflict lawsuit, there has been uncertainty around the group's activities. So the concerts, albums, tour, brand deals, none of that could be planned while the dispute was unresolved. And I guess that's why investors had priced NewJeans as essentially inactive or unusable. Their IP was effectively frozen. So the moment news broke that members were returning to ADOR, the market reacted immediately because from an investor's perspective, this was the unlocking of valuable assets. So that means potential revenue coming back online and active. But by the way, what's the price right now? Okay, 4%. All right. But here is where things get complicated, because even though the stock bounced, some people's reactions are far more mixed. Why? Because many of them hoped for a clean break, like these NewJeans members paying the penalty, however big it might be, 600 billion, they say, and however they borrow money or something. I don't know. They could borrow money from Saudi Arabia. I don't know. And some shareholders hoped for a clean break like that. Members paying the penalties, leaving ADOR, and starting fresh elsewhere. And that scenario would have closed the chapter and removed the tension between, NewJeans and ADOR entirely. That may be the case, may not be, but instead, what we get here feels like reopening a wound that never healed. And as a shareholder myself, I felt the same conflict because, okay, in the short term, NewJeans returning might remove a legal cloud and may boost earnings potential. But the deeper question is, what risk could come with bringing back a group that has been at the center of the most damaging internal conflict HYBE has ever experienced, that this industry has ever experienced? Because I am already worried about the renewed tensions inside the company and potential frictions with other HYBE labels and other HYBE artists, and troubling narratives returning to the public conversation, and the possibility that the next problem could be even bigger than the last one. And I want to be honest here. When I learned about this news, and the more I try to digest what's happening, this is the first time since becoming a HYBE shareholder that I genuinely felt like selling the stock. And that alone should tell you how unsettling the situation felt from my perspective. Because there are conditions to be met, I feel like, for shareholders and fans like me to even half-heartedly embrace their return. So yeah, the stock went up, and it's going up, but emotionally, mentally, and strategically, I think shareholders were anything but relieved. I don't know. At least that's the case for me. So here are some real concerns that I have right now. First of all, the internal risk, right? This wasn't just a small disagreement. This was a legal war that exposed serious fractures. And bringing back the same team without a clear resolution raises the possibility of renewed conflict. And what about the workplace safety and morale? Like employees across HYBE and even across labels under HYBE were dragged into this chaos. Think about Le Sserafim Source Music and ILLIT's Belief Lab. And some were harassed by NewJeans fans. And some were publicly accused of things that later turned out to be false. So bringing the group back, including, for example, Hanni, who spoke so proudly of the fact that she heard the phrase, ignore her, at HYBE at the National Assembly, where that phrase itself was created by Minji. and that's something that the court acknowledged as well. So this whole National Assembly performance was a nightmare. So bringing her back means that every department that has to brace for the possibility of the same cycle repeating. And what about reputational risk for other artists? Like LE SSERAFIM, ILLIT, and some could say BTS. Everyone got pulled into messy narratives that had nothing to do with them. And it damaged brand value and forced other fandoms into a year-long stress cycle. And I fear that if one wrong comment drops again, or if something leaks, the entire ecosystem gets shaken all over again. And what about the fandom conflict? NewJeans' return doesn't magically reset the past year. There's fatigue, there's resentment, and there's trauma. Already, yesterday and today, I'm seeing some toxic conversations happening on social media, waged by none other than toxic bunnies. And yeah, I mean, there are all sorts of incidents that happened for the past year, right? Including the ignore her incidents. This was the YouTube guerrilla live stream waged by NewJeans members. And then National Assembly. And right after National Assembly, Hanni turned on a live stream with Minji and says that, I realized that once I started crying, the cameraman, the journalist, snapped more photos. That was ridiculous. And then the guerrilla press conference. And then around Christmas time, they showed up at radio news programs hosted by someone named Kim Hyun-jung. And at the time, Hanni also cried. Why did she even cry? And then Minji was proudly wearing this t-shirt with NewJeans faces all over it. And then they showed up at court. And even in court, they dropped names of ILLIT and LE SSERAFIM. And then after losing the court case, they had interviews with Time and BBC and says that this is the reality of South Korea. And the Korean nation is trying to turn us into revolutionaries. All sorts of things. Which is why the fan reactions are mixed, to say the least. Some reactions are intense and divided. And honestly, I feel like anyone pretending to be surprised by this reaction hasn't been paying attention for the past year. So as soon as the news broke, comment sections across Korean platforms started filing up, right? And the tone wasn't, celebratory. The overall mood was tense, cautious, and in many cases, openly fearful. So let me quickly go through some of the comments that I found online. For example, this one. They trained together, and after over a year of being treated that horribly, I thought there was no way they would go back. All right, so to add some clarification, here they're referring to LE SSERAFIM members and NewJeans members who used to train together. For example, Yoonjin. She was friends with some members, right? But they're saying that, so after LE SSERAFIM got treated so horribly, I thought there was no way that NewJeans member would go back. Even their dad was suffering, and they said that they would appeal no matter what. But now, just one shameless statement and everything is supposed to be resolved? Are the 1 year and 6 months we spent getting hurt just wiped away like nothing? And if we don't accept their apology, are we going to be called witches again? Well, apology is a separate discussion topic that I want to talk about. Because a lot of people say that a public apology is needed from NewJeans members. Whether they're going to do that, we'll have to see. Another comment. HYBE should equip every employee with a 1440p body cam with good audio before they get dragged into another National Assembly hearing, even after 90-degree bowing. Shouldn't ADOR have their own separate building by now? Their presence seriously harms the welfare and peace of the other HYBE labels. They lied, saying someone didn't bow properly, and dragged that nonsense all the way to the National Assembly. If I think about LE SSERAFIM and ILLIT, Hanni should apologize for the trouble she caused her juniors and 선배님s, right? Even if it was because she got manipulated by that bad adult, Minji. Apologizing isn't that hard. Just apologize and let's go back to being NewJeans. Some people don't care about contract termination one way or another, but if they don't apologize, that's not okay. She must apologize to LE SSERAFIM and ILLIT. How about this one? NewJeans gets pampered with, oh, they're just kids who made mistakes, and congratulated on their comeback. What about LE SSERAFIM? Are they not young? Last year, when they were getting cursed out, LE SSERAFIM and ILLIT were all young too, but people trashed them non-stop, lol, and NewJeans tore the court over a tiny mistake. Incredible. Someone said, Hanni, start by apologizing to ILLIT if NewJeans wants to come back. So overall, especially for fans of LE SSERAFIM and ILLIT, this news hits especially hard, right? Because they spent an entire year being dragged into narratives that they had nothing to do with. And their group was called like names, accused of things without evidence, and constantly used as a punching bag in the discourse. And some fans said that they were afraid that this entire cycle would restart now that NewJeans is returning. And ILLIT fans as well, they were in a similar situation, maybe even worse. They were branded as copies, attacked relentlessly, and blamed for controversies that came entirely from Minji behind the scenes. And to this day, no apology has been offered to the members, especially from Hanni, when even the court acknowledged the fact that ignore her phrase probably never happened because it was coined by Minji, according to the conversations between her and Hanni. As a Korean citizen, this is just a pure evil nightmare that this nation experienced last year at the expense of taxpayers' money. And also, even BTS Army wasn't spared during the conflict. If you think about it, BTS members were name dropped by Minji, and rumors were, pushed using BTS name. And Minji said something like, oh, BTS V, by the way, he called me while he's serving in the military asking if I was okay. Didn't she say that during like the Hyundai Card talk show or one of the YouTube channel live streams talk shows or something? And then, of course, according to her conversations with the shaman, she planned to take down HYBE before BTS comes back. And the shaman advised her to end BTS. Meanwhile, NewJeans members openly sided with Minji, still calling her mom, and their mentor or leader were 대표님, CEO, representatives. So, which is why many armies are kind of furious and by commenting, we just want HYBE to protect BTS from unnecessary drama, right? And then, in fact, many of them are calling for apologies from NewJeans members. And this isn't a situation where fans are simply being dramatic. Of course, in K-pop, in a lot of cases, fans become dramatic. But this is different, I would say, because they're reacting based on what they lived through, which is months of harassment, accusations thrown from toxic bunnies, leaked documents, manipulated narratives, and uncertainty that just dragged on endlessly. So, before I wrap, I just want to, from my personal perspective, I have said this many times on my channel, I really liked NewJeans when they first debuted. Up until this whole thing began, right? I like their music, and I enjoyed the direction that they were taking. But the past year completely changed the way I experienced their content and music, and in fact, I no longer experience their content because at some point, without even noticing it, I started forming a kind of emotional scar, like what I can only describe as a form of like a fandom trauma. It got to the point where hearing a NewJeans song in public made my body react first. I felt uneasy, because my mind jumped straight to the conflict involving Minji, and it reminded me of all the negativity, all the fighting, and all the stress that surrounded NewJeans and Minji. Now things got better, especially the past several months. But yesterday's news, the announcement of their comeback, brought all of those feelings back to the surface immediately. And I'm pretty sure such feelings are worse for a lot of fans out there. Now, what about HYBE, the company? If NewJeans is truly returning, then HYBE needs to handle the situation with extreme precision and caution. Not casually and not vaguely, and not with let's wait and see attitude. This requires active and thoughtful management, because it involves the emotional state of multiple fandoms, multiple artists, and the public perception of HYBE as a whole. So look at who suffered the most throughout this entire saga, like the Seraphim fans, ILLIT fans, BTS Army during enlistment, and even HYBE's own employees were openly attacked or blamed in the process. So these communities endured months of stress, harassment, misinformation, and targeted negativity. And many of them still don't feel safe or comfortable at the idea of interacting with anything related to NewJeans. So the reality is, if HYBE mishandles this return, even slightly, the damage won't stay contained, and it will spill into other fandoms, other artists, and eventually HYBE's reputation as a whole. And I'm not exaggerating, I don't think. Like, imagine this hypothetical challenge ahead. Let's say NewJeans has a comeback with a new album, and they participate in TikTok challenges with other HYBE artists. Now, some artists and some fandoms may feel very uncomfortable, even at the idea, right? And if certain artists or fandoms reject the interaction, they will get attacked again, just like before. If they don't collaborate at all, haters will claim HYBE is isolating NewJeans. If they do collaborate, though, some haters will claim that HYBE is exploiting the situation, and it might anger, the fandoms of artists collaborating with NewJeans. So it could be like a lose-lose situation for HYBE if they do not handle this case right away in a very careful manner. So every path has landmines. That's why I believe, or I would like to believe, that HYBE must already have a detailed internal manual for every possible scenario. Right? They should have expected this happening. If what happened on November 12th was a surprise for HYBE, then I'll be extremely disappointed as a shareholder. So, in other words, they must have a structured plan and crisis management roadmap and a clear strategic approach for communication, artist safety, and fandom coordination. Because if they haven't prepared one, then they're walking straight into a storm with no umbrella. And let's just be honest. ADOR so far has been pretty good at protecting NewJeans' IP, even when the members were, rejecting ADOR as an agency, and that has been, producing good results in court. But at this point, HYBE doesn't just need to protect NewJeans' IP. They need to protect everyone, every label, every staff member, every artist, and every fandom under its umbrella. So when I say HYBE needs to handle this carefully, it's not really a warning. It's also a plea for responsibility, for the sake of the entire company and all the artists and fans who didn't ask to be dragged into this. And I know for the past few months, when it comes to the Seraphim fans and ILLIT fans, they didn't necessarily go so far as attacking their own agencies like HYBE, even though in K-pop that happens all the time. No fans generally like their artist agencies. But the Seraphim fans and ILLIT fans didn't really attack HYBE. Why? Because HYBE was on the same boat. They got dragged into this mess and attacked, just like the Seraphim and ILLIT. So they were relatively being gentle on the company, I think. But now, they might turn away from HYBE if they mishandle this. You know what I'm saying? So the real question is, and this is an important part to discuss before we wrap. The real question is, where the members stand ideologically. I will use the word ideologically. Do some of the members still see Minji as their mom and as their 대표님, exact CEO, their guiding figure, and the person they owe loyalty to? And do they still share her worldview? And do they still believe in the narratives that she pushed during the conflict? Because if they're returned to HYBE or ADOR, to the larger system they openly fought against for months, we need some clarity. Because we still remember like older posts, captions, and comments and videos where certain members spoke about Minji in almost reverential, borderline worship-like language. And these weren't just casual compliments. These were messages that framed her as a mentor, a visionary, a personal savior, even. And they matter then, but they matter even more now. If the members still privately hold those beliefs, then HYBE is essentially bringing back artists whose loyalty might lie elsewhere. So the question is pretty simple. Where do the members stand now? Have their views changed? Do they still hold the same devotion? Have they emotionally separated themselves from Minji, or is that bond still intact? And I don't think HYBE can afford ambiguity on this. Not after what happened. Not when the entire company, multiple fandoms, and millions of people were affected. And some might say that like an ideological check is needed here. And it's not really about policing their opinions. It's about protecting the workplace and ensuring the environment is safe and functional for everyone involved. And last but not least, let's talk about the matter of apologies. Should NewJeans apologize? If so, to whom and in what manner? Because if NewJeans truly wants to return and rebuild trust, both inside and outside HYBE, then some form of acknowledgement is necessary. Think about it. The Seraphim members were attacked relentlessly. ILLIT's debut was derailed by accusations fueled by the conflict, and managers and employees were harassed, and a former ADOR employee, the female employee, who got harassed by the former executives of ADOR, including Minji and the VP Lee Sang-woo, she was accused and vilified by bunnies, NewJeans fandoms. And at the time, these members did some like sneak disses here and there, acknowledging the situations happening at the time. And even BTS was dragged into the narrative again and again. I still remember the social media post uploaded by Jungkook saying that artists are not guilty, don't use them. I feel like that itself caused controversies because the bunnies, NewJeans fans, were taking advantage of that for their own agenda. So it involved a lot of different players. And on top of that, everyday fans, like the real people, were bullied and targeted online just for supporting other artists other than NewJeans. And you cannot expect all of that to disappear the moment a comeback is announced. And like someone mentioned earlier, an apology isn't about humiliation. It's about healing for everyone involved. And it's about giving affected fandoms a reason to even consider forgiveness. And it's also about acknowledging the damage was done, intentionally or not. Now, HYBE or ADOR might never allow an apology because it could imply, I don't know, it could complicate things. And the members, NewJeans members, might personally resist it. And ironically, apologizing could trigger new waves of backlash from the same fan base that enabled the problem in the first place. So it's not simple, but I feel like ignoring the issue won't make it go away either. So again, if they want to win trust and rebuild trust, apologies are needed. But what do you think? Is apology needed? If so, how should it take place? In what manner? And to whom the apologies be directed to? Some might say NewJeans should also apologize to like the company and Bang Siok and even the Korean citizens for criticizing the Korea as a nation after losing the court battle, saying that Korea is turning us into revolutionaries, and even doing these the National Assembly performance at the time. Anyways, that was that. So yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts. The bottom line is, if you think about it, why the members are coming back at all, the return isn't really a triumphant comeback, right? It's the only path that's left. Because they just lost all legal cases. And at this point, Minji has no hope. But I'm really genuinely curious about the current status of the relationship between NewJeans members and Minji and NewJeans members' parents. But yeah, this is a critical time for HYBE, I feel like. And I'm really hoping, and I would like to believe that HYBE already has solid internal protocols in terms of what to do right at this point and how to address the whole thing. So, yeah, let me end by asking questions to you. Do you think, well, first of all, what do you think about the statements made by ADOR about Haerin and Hyein, and made by Minji, Hanni, and Danielle, and the one made by Team Bunnies? What do you think about those? And should an apology be part of the return process? What do you think about? And can HYBE create a safe environment for all labels after this one? What do you think about that? And as fans or observers, what would it take for you to feel comfortable supporting NewJeans again, if at all? Let me know your thoughts. And before ending, sorry, I kind of feel like this whole video was kind of chaotic. And, many of you asked for the English translation of the video that I posted last night in Korean. And even in that video, I was kind of being chaotic as well. Let me briefly read these comments written by my subscribers. So yesterday I posted this, right? All 5 NewJeans members are reportedly heading back to ADOR. I'm letting the situation play out a bit before commenting, but what's your gut reaction? And 30% said conflicted, 66% said concerned, only 4% said excited. Nearly 3,000 people participated. This is a situation that I hope never happen, and I'm afraid that this is part of NewJeans' plans. A Korean comment. I'm concerned about the effect this will have on other HYBE girl groups, especially ILLIT, who have had their debut year overshadowed by attacks and accusations from this lot and their narcissistic handler. I'm also concerned about their attitudes and work ethic, meaning NewJeans members' attitudes and work ethics, if they're only going back to save money rather than accepting the fact that they were wrong. There's been no apology, and their fans have been very vocal in their hate campaigns against HYBE groups and HYBE in general. They need to be put on hiatus until either their contract expires or they pay to get released. They cannot be allowed to have done all this with no consequences. Something feels off about this. I read the announcement from Hanni, Minji, and Danielle, and oh boy, it literally seems like they're trying to make it sound as if they were forced to announce their return to ADOR just because the company didn't release a statement at first. The tone of their announcement feels so condescending, yep, condescending is the right word, that it honestly makes me question their true intentions for coming back to ADOR. By the way, it's ADOR without an E. HYBE and ADOR should definitely be cautious and set clear conditions for their return because the statement alone gives off a lot of fake energy and bad intentions. I'm worried the statements Minji, Danielle, and Hanni made announcing their return was such a bad faith statement. They don't sound like they intend to work peacefully with ADOR in good faith at all. Haerin and Hyein clearly had talks with ADOR and reached an agreement. But the way MDH announced their return makes me wonder if they had no intention of returning until they saw the notice about Haerin and Hyein today. It sounded like they pinched ADOR an email a few hours ago saying we're coming back. It could be a few minutes ago and say that, oh, they haven't responded yet. And then made a press statement almost straight afterwards, claiming ADOR hasn't responded, still painting ADOR as an aggressor. Honestly, it sounds like their old public opinion manipulation tactics again. Exactly. Except this time it's directly from them rather than NewJeans. It makes me worried for all the staff and artists at HYBE. Yeah. And overall, the sentiments are pretty similar, right? Worried, cautious, and confused. The agency must take steps to protect and support the other groups. Since they sided heavily with MHA, who wanted to find something against the other groups, how can they be trusted? Exactly. Yeah, and one of the things that happened last year, but I decided not to comment on, I think at this one I might have commented before. So last year, on Chaewon's birthday, the Seraphim's leader, Chaewon's birthday, bunnies, toxic bunnies, sent funeral wreaths to HYBE. And the thing is, the Seraphim fandom begged them to re-coordinate the schedule. They said that, we really respect your decision and we will pay for even the penalties if you have to pay to the funeral wreath service. But please change the date. Come on, it's Chaewon's birthday. But they rejected the idea and sent the funeral wreaths anyways. And parked them, set up the funeral wreaths right in front of the birthday bus for Chaewon. Also, many of you are aware that this is a quote-unquote influencer or creator who are known for throwing out toxic comments at other HYBE artists. And she got to meet personally with Danielle and Hanni in front of the HYBE building. And how do you know? Because that person proudly shared the screenshot of this conversation. Did they even use the official social media channel for NewJeans? I'm here, or at the front or the back of a building. Hanni and Danny, thank you so much. Heart. It was so lovely to meet you. Hope you have a safe flight back tonight. So nice meeting you. Stay safe and love you always. And proudly shared this photo that they took in front of the HYBE building. Yeah, meeting with a well-known hater of HYBE artists. That is so sketchy. And Minji, back in March of this year, she said in court that it wounded her, that her heart broke for the fact that Le Sserafim was the first girl group to debut at HYBE before NewJeans as a first girl group. Whereas it turns out Minji was the one who delayed NewJeans' debut intentionally, and she even said that she wants NewJeans to debut later because that's what a protagonist does. But it's so regrettable that these guys, the members themselves, have openly dragged other artists such as Le Sserafim and ILLIT into the case and even talked about them in court, whereas they should have known that it was Minji after all along. If they haven't learned, well, that's too bad. And I would say if they are really coming back, they should read the full court document in full length from the start to the end. And the fans, the bunnies, if they want to do their fan activities for NewJeans, I would strongly advise them to read the full document, the legal document. But I doubt they will. All right, leave your thoughts in the comment section. And as always, let's stay positive, respectful, and classy. Thank you guys. Peace and love. Bye-bye.